All right. Good morning and welcome everyone to the ABCs of Emotional Intelligence and Leadership Development. I am Kevin Stoffel.
And I'm Sherry Buffington. Both Kevin and I have decades of experience helping leaders get the best from themselves and from other people. That's what we're here to spread the information of.
Yeah, and collectively we have more than 50 years of experience in this space. And over the years, we found that whenever things go awry, effective leadership is always lacking.
Mhm. Leadership is a foundational set, and it's a set of skills that, when well executed, can motivate, manage, uh, guide, and inspire people to accomplish really great things.
Yeah, and when we apply leadership, apply it to ourselves and among other things accomplished our emotional intelligence, more success, and greater satisfaction in both our careers and in life in general. So that's why we've put this program together, is we just think it's so important to our journey through life, if you will. Oops.
Personally and professionally.
My mouse is hiding on me. There it is. All right. So we call this the foundational ABCs of emotional intelligence and leadership development. And the ABC stands for awareness, better choices, and caring, doing or making those choices and doing things with a caring attitude. And we become more aware, make better choices with a caring attitude that leads to true leadership. And true leadership begins with all true leadership begins with leading ourselves well. So it's really kind of the idea behind this program. And it all starts with awareness. And Sherry developed this model called the ACE effect, which stands for awareness, choice, and effect. And everything starts with awareness. Until we become aware of situations or circumstances or choices that we have to make, we can't make those choices. So everything starts with awareness. So the more we can expand our awareness, the better choices we can make. And when a choice is put in, we become aware of a choice, we can either do the right thing or the wrong thing. And so life is really just kind of a series of binary choices. And then when we go down the path of the right thing, we can either do or don't do. And whether we do or don't do the right thing has an effect on our energy. We can feel our energy go up, we can feel our energy go down. It can have a positive effect or a negative effect. The same is true on the right-hand side. If we choose to do the wrong thing, we can either do or don't do the wrong thing. And again, that has an effect on our energy, either positively or negatively. So really, if we just think about it, awareness, choice, and effect on our energy, and making those choices is kind of a binary code, if you will. They're really all that life is made up of.
We've had people observe, well, so what this model says is that sometimes not doing the wrong thing is the right choice. And yes, that's correct. Not doing the right thing is often the wrong, or not doing the wrong thing is often the right choice.
Right. And no matter what we do, if we do, taking a caring approach is always the right thing to do. And that's both caring for ourselves as well as caring for other people. We tend to think about caring in the context of caring for other people, but it's really important also to think about caring for ourselves or self-care, is because that has an effect on our energy as well.
Yes, and it's one of the patterns we frequently see in leaders, that the last thing they're taking care of is themselves.
And if we don't take care of ourselves, we have no time, energy, or resources to give to other people to help take care of them or the situations in front of us. So emotional intelligence is the ability to effectively recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, and also to recognize, understand, and effectively influence the emotions of others. So it really starts with self. And as Plato said, above all else, know thyself. So it really starts with authentic self-awareness, and awareness of the motivators, needs, and communication styles of others is essential to developing a high level of emotional intelligence. So that's really what this program is about, is to try to raise those level of self-awareness and awareness of others and how we interact in those dynamics between self and others, so we can manage those relationships, which is really the definition of emotional intelligence, or EQ as it's called, emotional quotient. So we started this program back in February, I think it was, a series. And this is the list of things that we've gone through so far. So we started with relationship building and motivation, influence, assertiveness, and so, et cetera. We've been working our way through this list, and this month we're focused on the topic of change management, and which is a very constant problem that we're all dealing with, because the only constant is change. Sherry, you want to take a lead on this?
So change management has three primary steps. There are a lot of sub-steps within those three primaries, but it helps to remember. The brain likes threes. It remembers things in threes. So this is kind of handy that there's three of these. So step one is to convey the goal and the ultimate outcome. And the reason for that is if people don't know where you're going or where the change is going, fear comes up. We were born with one fear, and that's fear of the unknown. And when change is unknown, people are going to be fearful of it. They're going to be suspicious of it. They're going to resist it. So to convey to the people that are going to be impacted by the change what the ultimate goal is and what you believe the ultimate outcome or your vision for the ultimate outcome is, it alleviates that fear of the unknown. It helps them to help you create a clear action map to the change you're looking for. And it helps to convey the benefit to them. All motivation is around increasing pleasure and reducing pain and giving people a clear goal, what that looks like and what the outcome will be, helps them to step into that space of being motivated by increasing pleasure. Things will get better. Step two is to share the consequences of not changing. You're going to have people in your organization who don't like change. Most people don't like change. There are the bold types either will like it or embrace it when it shows up. But there are people in your organizations that don't like change and they will resist it. If you share the consequences of not changing to all of your people, then you're going to increase buy-in. They're going to be more willing to move through the change process, even when it's uncomfortable. It will help to drive their determination to move through the process because they don't want the negative outcome. And it conveys, again, the cost of not moving forward, which then the brain uses as, if we do this, it will reduce pain. Step three is to prepare the team for the journey. And we've got several slides on that because it's a process for preparing the team. Beyond being clear on what the goal is, what the change outcome will be, and what the consequences are, is to prepare the team to actually move through change itself so that when resistance comes up or challenges come up, as they inevitably will when we're changing something, especially substantially, then they'll be more willing to move through it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think about is, and most leaders tend, when it comes to change, we tend to cast a vision about where we're going, but it's equally as important, if not more important, to cast a vision as to why we can't stay here, the consequences of not changing, because staying here is going to have bad effects or bad outcomes if we stay where we're at. And one of the things I often think about is, if we're not growing, we're dying, right? And so change is often is part of the growth process, and staying here is part of the dying process. So we got to cast the vision of where we're going, but also cast the vision as to why we can't stay here.
Well, and also a thing to understand at this point where we're conveying the outcome, remember to include them, because if the outcome is that the company is going to be more profitable, what does that mean to them? So there's an old saying that everybody functions from WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? And be sure when you're talking about the benefit of moving forward that you include the individuals that will be affected by it. So that's the why to do it. And then how do you do that? So oftentimes we don't make an effective change, not because we don't know why, but because we don't know how. It's like, okay, what are the steps that will get me there? So in this case, you would want to develop a comprehensive plan that outlines the change that will be implemented and includes specific goals, timelines, milestones, so people can know, are we moving forward? Are we progressing at the intended rate, or are we falling behind? That just having that progress report, as it were, or where we can self determine what the progress is, will be very beneficial to helping your people move through change with you. How do you share the consequences of not changing? You want to, again, define both aspects of change to include how the company and or the team will be negatively impacted if the change is not made. And again, understanding it has to be personal. What's in it for me? What's in it for me to change? What's in it for me? What's the consequences to me of not changing, for them to buy into it and be willing to move through the process without resistance. So an example there is decreased sales or market share. That's for the company itself. Layoffs is about the employee, the people you're talking to. Unhappy employees. If you've been unhappy, if we've had systems that aren't working and it slows you down and it prevents you from getting your job done, when we improve the system, once you learn the system, life is going to be easier. Things are going to flow more easily. So we're looking at the employee too. So those are the kinds of things you want to share with them. So in preparing the team for the journey, there are a lot of steps. There are a lot of things that we want to be doing. One is to, and it's really important to identify and empower change champions. So you're going to have people on your team, and typically it's the bold types. In Core Map, we call that commander and entertainer. So you get an extroverted thinking style and an extroverted feeling style. And both of those embrace change. They're fine with it. They again, nobody loves change, but they're not except entertainers. Entertainers enjoy change. It keeps life interesting. So what you want to do is identify change champions at various levels of the organization and engage them to motivate others to share the vision, to address concerns. And those people will actually help you to help the resistors move through the process more readily. And typically peer-to-peer has more weight than superior to peer sometimes, as far as moving people through change. You want to provide regular, transparent, and two-way communication. Many organizations aren't good at that. They're not transparent about the change. They'll talk about the result, but they won't talk about the process itself. And if people don't understand the process and what parts of the process are going to be challenging, then they're going to get stymied at that point. So be sure that your communication is tailored to the different groups within your organization, to be sure that they understand that the impact on them, their team, and how they will personally be affected. You want to offer ongoing support such as help desk, mentoring, peer networks to assist individuals through the transition. I've seen many situations where the change initiative has been explained, it's been rolled out to people, and then they're left on their own. It's not supported. There's not that ongoing support, and most people need ongoing support going through change, especially significant change in an organization. So things like help desks and people who will mentor them in the long term. And again, those are people who are champions of change to mentor those who are not. And those peer networks that will keep that energy going, keep that motivation going. Because if it falls off, I've seen organizations just fall right back where they were. It's just too easy to fall into those habited behaviors that may or may not be beneficial, but they're easy. So you want to continually monitor the progress of change so that you can identify issues as they come up and any roadblocks that come up and manage those. Adjust your vision or your map, your change map accordingly, so that if there's a problem that comes up, you have to work around it. You will work around it.
Yeah, when I think of the peer networks and the aspect of that, one of the things that when we're going into the unknown, the unknown is scary, right? And there's always safety in numbers. So if we can get peer networks involved and engaged, people feel that safety aspect going into the unknown together rather than going off into the unknown by themselves. So peer, I think Sherry's comment about peers being important is very true.
Yeah, we tend not to want to disappoint our peers either. So this is the change curve, and if you expect this to happen, it won't derail you as a leader. It will help you to work people through each of those phases that they go through. So for many people, change is treated as grief. You know, they go into this grief space like, oh, I have to now get out of my comfort zone and get out there into the unknown, and that's scary. And so the initial response is, especially for those who resist change, is to be to have that shock, that sudden awareness feels like a shock, like, oh no, we have to change. Then there's, well, we don't have to. Why should we have to do? That's the denial stage. Why should we have to change? Sorry. So why should we have to change? Then they go into panic or dread. Oh dear, we have to. We do have to. I'm not happy about that. So what did I do wrong, or what did the company do wrong, or what did our leader do wrong? Is, you know, why are we having to do this? Why did this person? I've got. Let me do this. I don't know why this keeps ringing. I can't get it to stop. There, that maybe that works. Sorry about that. So then there's that panic and that dread, and that just takes people down. That reduces energy, it increases fear and reduces energy. It also reduces productivity. So when we're dealing with fear, the response to fear is generally stress or depression or anxiety or something that increases stress levels. And in that process, even if people want to perform at a high level, they're not able to, because their brain is now dealing with stress and fear as opposed to dealing with the process at hand. So understanding that many people will go through this and they'll reach that place where you're going, why are they not on board? I've explained this, and the effect of clarity, and clarity not as it just relates to the company, but as it relates to the individual too. And this is clarity about the process and clarity about how they can personally move through it. So it's not just why move through it, but how do you move through it? Many people are stymied because they may understand why, they just don't know how. So, but be sure you allow for that too. So then comes the acceptance. Okay, where the change is happening, it's inevitable. There's some benefits to it. We'll keep trying, and then they start the testing and experimentation stage, and so will you. So what we envision as change almost never unfolds as envisioned. Things happen that we couldn't anticipate because we've never been there. We're forging a new path. And on that new path, then the things we run into sometimes we didn't anticipate. So there's going to be the experimentation on your part too. And if your people are open to that, they don't think you're crazy jumping from one thing to the next to the next. They understand that we're experimenting, we're trying as we go along. We're trying to find the right path through, the most beneficial path. So then people finally will get on board, and they move from that experimenting, we don't know quite what's happening here, we don't know what that pathway looks like, to, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought. And your role is very important in getting people to that feeling that there's hope, and this is a renewal, and things actually are going to be better. Then they move into that willing to discover, and discovery becomes more fun. It's not fearful, it's more fun. And then they move up and into the change process with more enthusiasm and more energy. And now you have a team that's integrated into that process, and it's not the battle, but you are going to have that dip at some point from many people on your team. They're going to resist.
Yeah. And it's along the bottom of this chart here, it says awareness, understanding, acceptance, engagement. I really like to think about it along those lines, that as we increase the clarity and the awareness of the change that's necessary of both where we're going, the clarity where we're going, and the clarity why we can't stay here, then that leads to increased understanding. As we increase understanding, of why we need to do things, how we need to do things, and what we need to do. Then it leads to acceptance. As people accept the change, then it leads to more engagement. So those four words really kind of boil this whole thing down into the process that people go through mentally to get from point A to point B. And the critical point is really at the bottom of that curve, right? Because that's the place where people oftentimes give up. When things get the toughest, they give up and they abandon the change. They abandon the reasoning why they were going to do what they're going to do, and they give up because things get too difficult.
Yeah, they either give up or they push back, and in either case, it's a problem for you, for the leader.
So part of preparing the team for the journey is to find those change champions. So this slide really talks about we need to know which team members will embrace change and which will resist it, and under what conditions resistors will tolerate it. So there's really just there's four different personality styles outlined here in these four quadrant boxes. There's the commanders. They're the get it done types, the bold types, the action oriented extroverts, the thinking serious, less approachable. But they're the natural leaders. They're oftentimes the people that end up in leadership positions because that they're comfortable taking charge of people and situations by nature, so to speak. And they typically
go ahead.
They typically will embrace change if they know what the bottom line is, because they're all about the bottom line. Cut to the chase, get to the achieve the goal, get to the finish line, so to speak. So they want to achieve that goal. So they see change as a way to achieve a new goal.
Yeah. And they're always asking the question, what's the point? And if you can let them know what the point is, they'll be right on board because they are one of the two that embrace change.
Yeah. The other style that tends to embrace change is the entertainers. They're the interactive people. They want to get connected to each other, to life, to experiences. They're also a bold type. They're the people-oriented extroverts. They're also feelers versus thinkers. So they lead more with emotion, right? So it's when communicating with them, it's more about how's it going to make them feel, not so much about the facts and the figures and the logic. And they tend to be the natural communicators, so they can be very helpful in communicating, casting the vision of where we need to go, and also why we can't stay here. But so generally they embrace change because they like change. They think it's going to be a new adventure, a new experience. But if change is going to put more restrictions on them, then they may resist it as well because they don't like to be restricted or tied down, kind of thing. So that's the one thing you got to be aware of when engaging the entertainers. And then you got the organizers. They're the task oriented, get it done or get it right people. So they're more reserved. They're the introverted, task oriented, introverted people. They also are thinkers similar to the commanders, that they process things more on facts and figures and logic and data. So they really like that detail. So when communicating with them, you got to speak their language and give them that detail, which we'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. They're the natural investigators. So they'll see in a change process, they will see the gotchas before you see them. If you're not an organizer, right? So they're looking for the potholes in the road, 100 feet, quarter mile, half a mile down the road. They're looking for the problems before the problems happen. So you want to really make sure you engage those people because they provide a tremendous value and benefit to that change process and avoiding those potholes. So they'll resist it unless the details are provided. So it's very, very important for those people on your team to make sure you provide, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, provide all the details, all the specifics, all the research, all the reasons why this change is necessary and why we can't stay here. And then the relators, they're the people that are about taking care of other people. They want to get along. They want to take care of others. So they're very important to the team, to help soothe people's nerves as people get stressed out through the change process, because they're good listeners and they're very, very feeling oriented. And they're very diplomatic, right? So they can bring the team together from a diplomacy standpoint. And when things get stressful or whatever and things blow up, they can be the people that calm everybody's nerves and calm the stress down. So but they also tend to resist change because of the reserve style, unless the benefit is clear, and the benefit to others is clear. So if they can see how this change is going to help other people in a way that takes care of other people, then they will get more likely to get on board with the change as well. So it's important to know those four styles and what styles you have on your team that are going to be impacted or affected by the change process. And the change champions are identifying the change champions tend to be the commanders and the entertainers, because they're more likely to embrace change or accept the change. And that's kind of step B is, or on step B, there is in group conversation, speak to all team members using both logic and feeling oriented language. So the commanders and organizers are both thinking types. So you need to communicate to them in a logical, data oriented, facts and figures sort of way. But the entertainers and the relators are feelers. So you need to communicate with them in more the feeling, emotion, how's this going to impact the people, how's it going to impact me sort of way.
And also when you pair them up, it's useful to pair commanders to organizers because they're both logical, and to pair entertainers with relators because they're both feeling styles. They share the same language. So if you have a someone who is logical trying to explain change to a feeling type who lives in the relational space, they sometimes miscommunicate. They cross communicate. So your best bet in getting a change champion to mentor a change resistor is to be sure that you're pairing them up, thinking to thinking and feeling to feeling. And the line on this chart that says commander is a serious, less approachable type, entertainer a playful, more approachable type. If you understand that we tell the absolute truth about ourselves non-verbally, you can look at your team members and often look at, is this person approachable or not approachable? Commanders tend to be less approachable because they're powerful, and people see power, their serious power, as intimidating. So that's why they seem less approachable. Organizers are very serious and low key, and they're very, both of these are task oriented, and it's that task orientation that makes people perceive them as less approachable. The two feeling styles, entertainer and relator. So entertainer tends to be more playful and upbeat and to engage people and talk to them easily, where relator more sits back and listens, and that they're playful in a very low key space. But if you can recognize them non-verbally by those observable behaviors, then you can be more effective in the way you pair teams in order to help the champions to mentor and move through the resistors.
Yeah, there's really two questions to help you identify people is, are they serious and less approachable, or playful and more approachable? And are they so that's question number one. Question number two is, are they more bold type or are they more reserved type? If you answer those two questions, you can fairly quickly identify which quadrant people fall into as part of your change management process.
Right. So commanders are bold and serious. Entertainers are bold and playful. So if your first question says, well, they're bold, okay, are they approachable or not so approachable? The playful types, the people-oriented types appear warm and approachable. The task-oriented types appear serious and less approachable. So you only have to ask those two questions to know what you're dealing with. You won't necessarily know how well developed they are, but you will know how they are showing up on your teams.
So any questions or thoughts or feedback on this slide? This has got a lot of information on it, and a lot of concepts. All right.
Be sure to unmute yourself if you have any questions.
All right. So it's really, identify your change champions. So you got to know which team members are, in which style they are. Make sure you communicate according to their language based on what style they are. and then enlist the champions, the people, the commanders and the entertainers to assist the organizers and relators in adopting the change and come along the change process, if you will, the change curve. Sherry, you want to talk to this?
The reason I have a picture of the mouse here looking over the top of cheese is because we frequently see in organizations leaders who tend to be the bold types, commander, entertainer, commander, organizer, commander, entertainer, commander, but they tend to be the bold types. And bold people communicate, they're generalists. They like the big picture and they like to communicate big picture style. Change management doesn't work well big picture style. There's not enough information, there's not enough detail, there's not enough guidance. So I call the two bold types, most leaders, especially when they're commander entertainers, Swiss cheese communicators. And I use that term because their communication is full of holes. It's the big picture stuff full of holes. All the details aren't filled in. And the reason, and typically they like the holes because to a bold type, the holes leave room for innovation and creativity. However, the not so bold types, and many people who are born to be bold have been conditioned away from it, and they're also looking at the holes, and they need those holes filled, and they need to know what the details that make up the big picture look like. So it's going to be really beneficial if you happen to be a big picture person to recognize that your communication style is probably Swiss cheese. You leave a lot of holes, and if you're not patient with filling in the holes, answering all the questions that the reserve types are going to ask you, then they're going to go away and they're going to assume what you want, and often what they assume isn't what you meant. So you don't want to leave those holes open for them to have room for assumptions that might not work well. So one, be patient with answering questions to fill in the holes, and two, be sure you get feedback when you're giving an instruction, and especially when you're moving people through change and they need to understand what that looks like and what their role in it is. Be sure to get feedback, and I tell people all the time that feedback has to be from your perspective. It needs to be, would you please feedback to me what I just explained to you so that I know I explained it well. Because if you reverse that and you say, would you please feedback to me what I just said so that I know you understand? The assumption under you understand is that you're not very bright. I don't trust you to be able to understand what I'm saying. So be sure you keep it in your court so that I understand that I communicated well. And then you'll get feedback, and you're going to be surprised often how frequently people cannot feed back to you what you just said to them and that you're certain they heard.
Right. Right. So at the beginning, we said there's, three basics or primary steps for change management: conveying the goal, sharing the consequences of not changing, and then preparing the team for the journey. The fourth step then is to continue to revisit and reinforce steps 1 through 3. Right. So it's not enough to just do the steps 1 through 3 at the beginning and then start your way through, start through the process or through the journey, change journey, and not come back and reinforce and revisit those things because people forget, things change. So after the initial change, we need to continue to assess and improve the new systems, processes, or behaviors, ensuring that they remain effective and aligned with organizational goals. So it's a recurring process all the way through through the change journey. It's not just a one and done kind of thing.
Right, because we run into those things we didn't anticipate, and then that requires an adjustment.
All right. So as always, we like to kind of end on 3 action steps. So first one is to get clear on the benefits, risks, and requirements of the change initiative so you can share them appropriately, both the benefits of where we're going, the risk of not staying here, and the requirements for the change process. Step 2 is to use the core map assessment to know your people and know what to expect from them during the change process. So, we talked about the two questions, is the person bold or reserved, or are they approachable or, playful and approachable, or serious and less approachable? That's kind of a simplistic way to identify individual styles. If you really want to, know for sure what style people are, um, versus who maybe they've been conditioned to be, we offer the core map assessment, which is we can talk about offline for you and your team if you'd like to do that. And then step 3 is to keep communicating why the change is necessary, how it's beneficial, and what is in it for them. Because communication, communication, communication. Just if you think you've communicated enough, communicate some more. Because that's the number one challenge in most businesses is, identified as on surveys and polls and whatnot of employees, is poor communication. So it's back to Sherry's, Swiss cheese idea that, you think you're communicating enough information, but there's a lot of people in your organization that have a lot of holes that they need to be filled in. So they need more communication, more communication, more communication.
With the core map assessment, one thing you can see besides that, those general observable traits, is how well those traits are developed, how reactionary they are, how patient they're going to be around particular kinds of behaviors, and also how they cope under stress. So what they do on an average day and how they cope under stress are often very different. People frequently cope under stress the way they did as a child. And unless they take them out and look at them and realize this isn't working quite as well as my the way I'm hardwired would help me to work, then they continue to cope that way. So it's useful to know not only what that individual is, what they're showing you non-verbally, but also how well developed is that, and are they what are they using to cope? What strategies?
All right. So that will open it up for questions or thoughts or comments.
Mark, you're unmuted. Did you have a question?
Um, yeah, when I know we've been talking about corporate organizations, and would you say that all of this applies across where two or more are gathered? It could be a hierarchy of a country, it could be a political, it could be any organization where two or more are gathered. All this applies. True, false?
Oh, absolutely true. If you look at our nation right now, people are resistant right now. The population in general is resistant right now because the way forward is not clear. We can't, we have no leaders that are stepping up and saying, this is precisely what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is how it's going to benefit you. That isn't happening. So even at a national level or a global level, those same rules apply. This is about change management. And wherever there's change in between two or more people, yes, this applies across the board. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, Margaret. Yes, that's
Absolutely.
true.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, can I throw an add-on to that? And that is, Sherry, on the passive aggressive assertive, only 12% attempt to make the journey, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that also would be an overlay on all of civilization slash political organization. I mean, only 12% truly take the steps in a conscious way to get to that higher evolutionary level. True on that too?
Yes, absolutely. And which is why, you and I have talked before, Mark, that 88% of the population are followers. 12% are leaders, and that 12% also happen to be those assertive types. But that 88%, they're looking for a leader. And so your roles as leaders are super important because when you can step into that leadership role and do it well, you're not just impacting yourself, you're impacting many, many people. And it tends to move out in a ripple effect. So that if you're helping one individual gain more emotional intelligence, more clarity, more self-management, more self-leadership, being a better self-leader, that's going to impact their family members, it's going to impact their friends, it's going to impact their social network. It impacts much bigger than just that one individual. So your roles as leaders and understanding that you are a minority in the world, 12% of people are natural leaders. That doesn't mean that only 12% are commanders. It means that 12% are well-developed commanders or entertainers or whoever steps in. And by the way, it tends to be the bold types that seek to lead. Others get put into leadership roles just because they're efficient at something. They're good at a job. So IT, for example, you'll often see organizers put into a leadership role because they're good in that IT department or accounting department, and they're good teachers. So organizers lead as teachers. They don't lead the way a commander might lead, but they're good teachers. So if you have low-key people who just need to learn the details, then an organizer would make a good leader. But they don't seek leadership. They usually get handed leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Another thought I want to share is this. We presented this really in the context of leading other people through change, but these concepts all really apply to leading ourselves through change as well, right? We can apply them to ourselves in terms of take step, if we're going through a change process, inside of an organization and they're not effectively managing in the change, we can manage ourselves through that process by looking at what's why do we need to go where the change is targeted to go, what are the consequences, of staying here, what style am I and what do I need and to embrace this change. If I'm a reserve type, I need to go get the details, or I need to understand what's the benefit for others. I can go, identify those needs. And I can go ask for that information rather than waiting for some other leader or boss or superior to provide that for me automatically. So we can use these concepts to lead ourselves through this change process as well.
There was a study done of levels of emotional intelligence and how it shows up. And those statistics, that 12% statistic continues to hold even there. What this research identified was 4 levels of emotional intelligence, and people live in that paradigm. So the first level is survival. People in survival mode are they think the world's dangerous. They think they have to protect themselves. They tend not to be very, very sociable or very that they're not out there in a bold way because they think life is dangerous. That they're in a survival mode. The next level up, emotionally intelligent, is security. So they're not hiding away from the world necessarily like the survival people are, or in great fear, but they believe that they have to take steps to stay secure. So there is a fear factor there, but it's less intense than for the survival people. The survival people are about 12% of the population, about 15% actually. The security level people is 73% of the population. So we're looking at 73 plus 15, right? People that are not out there making things happen. They're waiting for somebody else to make things happen. We're now looking at 88% of the population, or 87%, right, of the population. Then we've got 12% that are in the next level up, which is the success level. And those people are success oriented, but they're still externally focused primarily. They're looking at what can I do, what needs to be done, what needs to happen for me to be successful in the world. So they're success oriented, and those are the seekers. Those are the movers and shakers. Those are the people who are learning assertiveness because assertiveness helps them be successful. And then there's 1%, and that 1% moving up the scale, the 1% is self-actualized. And if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, the self-actualizers are at the very top of that pyramid of needs being met. So self-actualized people they're still aware of the success because they've usually moved through that process in their developmental process. but they also understand the internal factors for success. And so they're now focused on not just being functioning well in the outer world like the success oriented group does, but also how can I bring myself to a level of function that I can actually be most beneficial to myself and to other people. So that's 1%. So when we understand what a large percentage of the population is either in survival or success, and that they're looking for leaders, and here you are, it lets you know how important your role as a leader is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I want to share a couple of quick comments that have been made in the chat box here. So Laurel says, good organization of the concepts and reminders. Dee said, makes perfect sense to me. And then Laurel said, share your comment about leadership in our country and indeed the world, not communicating effectively around showing the WIIFM and way forward is the core of our issues today, along with stoking the fears that creates powder kegs.
Good observation, Laurel. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And Dee just said that she has, thanks everyone. She has to hop off to another meeting. So have a great day. So just a couple of comments are in the chat box. All right.
Any other comments? Anything else? Any questions that we can help to answer before we close out?
Oh, okay, I'm gonna press it one more.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If I can. And that is, out of the conversation you shared today, especially with the 12%, is there some kind of trait, characteristic, belief, maybe it's even physiological, a kernel that exists in that 12% that makes them the 12%? What is there something that has been studied or understood about that 12% that makes them the 12?
Oftentimes it's just the hardwiring. So we're born bold or reserved, right?
Yes.
It's usually the bold types that seek to lead. And even if they don't know consciously that they're seeking to lead, they often find themselves in leadership positions, and it's because they show leadership skills.
Gotcha.
But it's
Is it almost nature nurture?
it is both. It is both.
Okay.
It is both. And when you look at that people who step out there and become great leaders, the study that I did on level 5 leaders based on Jim Collins's Good to Great, what you discover when I ask them what gave you the insights and the wisdom and the approach to leadership that you have, almost every one of them went back to parents. So the nurturing, what their parents helped them to believe about themselves was hugely beneficial in their effectiveness.
Mm.
And so it is nurture and nature.
Okay. Fair enough. Good. Thank you. I won't monopolize anymore. Appreciate you guys being on.
Well, thank you for the questions. We really appreciate those questions. It helps us to expand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So just kind of wrapping up here. We're coming up on the top of the hour. So this is just our quick shameless self plug for our leadership development program we call LEAP, Leaders Equipped to Actualize Potential. That goes beyond the typical skills and knowledge and looks at some of the foundational factors that drive exceptional performance and productivity. So if your organization or somebody that you know in another organization would benefit from developing their leaders to the next level, we would definitely appreciate an opportunity to have that conversation. So that's a quick overview of that program. And then next month, a topic is vision and delegation. So the only way to effectively, or the only way to expand leadership is effectiveness is to effectively delegate. Hold on a second here. Delegate work to others, and delegation is far more effective when leader's vision is clearly conveyed. And in this session, you'll discover ways to convey your vision and delegate in a way that can multiply your effectiveness as a leader. So we invite everybody to join us next month, and as well as invite other people next month. And that's going to be on January 8th, the second Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 o'clock Central, and 12 o'clock Eastern. So we hope to see you then. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can email Sherry at sherry@starperformancesystems.com or myself at kevin@strongpeoplesystems.com. Feel free to reach out to us individually. And I will be sharing the recording out to everybody after the session here in the next day or so as well. So if you want to go back and review that, you can do so. I'll send out an email with a link to that. And you can also share that with other people on your teams as well.
And it's also available on YouTube. So there's a ABCs of Emotional Intelligence and Leadership on YouTube that you can go and see all the 11 we've done so far.
Yep. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording here.
And thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate having you here. And thank you for the great questions.